The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Wednesday, and here we go. It's the Wednesday after a clowncil meeting, which is always a treat. There's always...
No, this wasn't a treat. This was an absolute mess.
Well,
it was a storm.
For me. It's like...
It was a storm of epic proportion. You had city councilors fighting with the mayor. You had Shawn Cadime thinking he is the be-all, end-all and God's green creation to the world. You know, if you don't stop clapping, I'm going to throw you out. I'm going to have the officers escort you out. I thought the officers did exactly what they should have done. And Chief Racine, if you're watching, I'm going to tell you now, your officers did their job and they did it professionally. Shawn Cadime called a 5-minute recess to go out in the hall and chastise the officer on, because he would not go through the crowd and stop picking people and throwing them out. The officer said very clearly, I'm not going to violate anyone's First Amendment rights. You want them out, you select them, you point them out, ask them to leave. If they don't leave, then you ask me to go over and remove the person. That's your right under the law. He wasn't happy with that. I spoke to Chief Racine. I spoke to Chief, give me a break. Give me a break.
Well, it's power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
This was like a 6-year-old, though.
He's out of control. He doesn't have the experience. He got elected to the city council for the first time, and he thought he could be the president. Well, being the president of any organization means that you're going to have to oversee meetings. Sometimes meetings get out of control. And it's a test of leadership and experience if you can learn how to control the situation with as little disruption as possible, not create more disruption with the way you handle a situation. So, again, this is a situation, and the police officer was 100% right. It's not the police officer's job to determine if someone is disruptive or not. The police officer's job is to protect the person's constitutional rights. And he did. But now if the president of the city council now says, I rule this a disruption now as an officer of the law, and if he wants them removed, he's going to remove them, and then the city council president can make the case if they're being disruptive or not later, if there's any questions. It's not the police officer's job. The police officer, as usual, and in most cases, our police officers are very professional. Chief Racine knows exactly what to do, and he handled it well. And if it was a failure of anyone last night, it was a failure of leadership, a failure of the ability to control. Everybody that's ever been in charge of a meeting, I know you have and I have numerous times, sometimes you need a whip and a chair. It's like a circus, but you have to control the meeting. That's why they have sergeant at arms, and you have to know how to handle situations. And this is one of the reasons that my personal opinion is no first-term city councilor should ever be the president or vice president of the council. They do not have enough experience. They do not have enough experience with handling the council itself and the various players on the council, let alone handling the crowd when things get a little heated. And in this city, things have been getting heated. So, I think it's just a failure of Mr. Cadime to appropriately do the job as president of city council. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, well, you know what they say about opinions.
That's right.
There were a lot of citizens' input, and they actually waived the rules and went beyond the 30-minute time frame. And they were all saying the same thing. You work for us. You know, and I feel kind of excited about that because this is what we've been trying to do for 4 years. Can you believe it's been 4 years, Chip? 4 years. I have been reviewing some of our earlier broadcasts, and you'll never guess. It's the same thing. We're still talking about trash, pay as you throw, budgetary problems, net school spending, because the city won't learn. Yeah. And we even go back to July of 2014, just before they started the recall, and Jordan Sylvia sat between you and I at that desk out there and was speaking about civil disobedience and civic engagement. And he's right. That's what it takes. And I have to give a big shout out and a big kudos to my old civics and social studies teacher, Mr. Fallon, otherwise known as Jerry Fallon, who was at the city council yesterday, and he shoved it right up their backside. Just put it right up their backside. And he turned around and he read to them from the city charter. Oh no, again with the law. Division 1, which is the charter, under general provisions, section 5, existing organization to continue until superseded. Until superseded under this chapter, the organization of the executive and administrative departments and the powers and duties of the officers and employees of any city adopting any of the plans provided for in this chapter and the fiscal year of such city shall remain as constituted at the time of the adoption of such plan, but the city council or other legislative body, there's the key, the city council or other legislative body may at any time by ordinance consistent with the general laws reorganize, consolidate, or abolish departments, in whole or in part, transfer the duties, powers, and appropriations of one department to another, in whole or in part, establish new departments, and increase, reduce, establish, or abolish salaries of heads of departments or members of boards. This section shall not authorize any action in conflict with Chapter 31. This section shall not authorize the city council in any city which adopts Plan D or E, which we have not adopted, so it doesn't apply to us. And this is under the Acts of 1915, Chapter 267, Section 15, Chapter 378, Section 2, and Chapter 459, Section 2. Well, state law references Mass General Law 43, Section 5. So guess what, City Council? Mr. Fallon put you on notice.
Well,
he put you on notice.
We've been blowing them up for a long time, telling them that they have the purse strings, but they also have the ability now. So now the cat's out of the bag, and it isn't ironic that it's Section 5. That's the same section in the state constitution that I love that says that they're at all times accountable to the people. So, but see, here we are, City Council. Here's the gauntlet has been thrown. Everybody now knows, because of Jerry Fallon, who's a friend of mine.
Former president of the School Teachers Union.
Former president of the Teachers Union.
And I think he was the president. I think he was the president that took the teachers to strike, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, he may have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was actually, but
I know, I was a student.
He also stayed on the executive board for a very long time, and so I worked with Jerry for a very, very long time. But now the cat's out of the bag. The mayor doesn't. You have the right, not the mayor. The mayor can run around and you can cry all you want about, oh, we got a strong mayor, weak council. Well, the city charter gives you the ability to basically say no privatization, to reorganize the entire DBW on your own by ordinance. Will you do it? I doubt it. Will you even attempt to do it? No, you'll forget this, and you probably will all say, well, we don't really listen when they give citizens input. So maybe at the next council meeting, everybody should get a copy of that section of the charter and bring it in and basically leave a pile of them on the city council's desk, at all their desks. You know, this is just another example of why we've been talking about. Well, we're talking about paying attention. We're talking about educating yourself. We're talking about looking beyond what's said and researching it. This is the reason. The problem, the reason that we're talking about the same issue is because they never fix anything. Last night, our financial team, I'm saying that, you know, facetiously.
Well, the financial team doesn't do audits. They only do reconciliations.
Well, yeah, well, the financial team was up there, and Mr. Gupta said to the city, we are in solid financial footing. Well, Mr. Gupta, why did a month ago you vote against giving the retirees a lousy $360 COLA? That's the maximum you can get, which is less than $1 a day, because the city was in such financial straits that they couldn't afford that. But you could afford a $110,000 salary for your new hire, which I pointed out at the meeting. But the fact is that, you know, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You know, who can trust these people? Then alongside of them, you got Mary Sahadi. Now, Sahadi and Haig audited the books in this city for well over 20 years.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they were getting paid to audit the books.
That's right.
They were getting paid to audit the books. And we have sworn testimony that it wasn't an audit, it was a reconciliation or a recreation or both. I think he used the words both. I'd have to look at the transcript, but it definitely wasn't an audit. And he said that. But there was also over $1 million during that arbitration that our auditor, who by the way was a real auditor from Ernst & Young, found over $1 million that had been put into the employer, the city account, and it was employee money taken out of our paychecks and put into their bank account. How did the auditor miss that? But they did. And they missed it for years. And then a couple years later, they found 5, not 1, but 5 bank accounts that were associated with the health care that had been dormant for 25 years. 25, a quarter of a century, with no activity in those accounts. Again, missed in the audit. By the way, that audit is mandated by Chapter 32B, Section 3A.
Here you go, quoting the law again.
Yeah. And they didn't catch it. So, with all due respect, do you expect me to consider numbers given by Mr. Gupta, who a month ago was saying how bad the city was? Did we hit the lottery? Someone who works for a company that audited this city for decades and missed literally hundreds of errors. And they'll say, well, we didn't have the documentation and we couldn't really do it. Well, that's not my problem. You're getting paid to do an audit. Maybe as an auditor and as a CPA, you people had a fiduciary responsibility and you're sworn to uphold your duty as a CPA. Maybe you should have went public and say, the city of Fall River has to get its act together and give me sufficient records to do a real audit, not a reconciliation. And then, of course, we have Kathy Ann Viveris, who never saw a number she couldn't manipulate or make an excuse about. And then when somebody does their research and pins it down, she says, okay, Counselor, I'll get back to you later. I got to recheck these again. And so what's the end result of all this? Nobody in their right mind should ever accept anything that this city puts forth at a council meeting and says that this is accurate. As our mayor said yesterday to Councilor Cabaceres, you can meet with my financial team and you know, you can look at the numbers, but you won't find, you will be, in other words, well, and he said, well, what if I'm right? No, you will not be. You're like, and just like he said, and we declared an impasse. Well, who are you? Who are you?
The boy emperor.
You declared an impasse, and that's the end of it. You're not the emperor. You're the Führer. If you know, in other words, nobody can question that. This is the reason they're going to go to court on an unfair labor practice. They're going to the Labor Relations Commission. We read it. They didn't meet the criteria. for an impasse. And whoever they're paying to do this stuff is, and it's a bag job from the word go. This is the way the city of Fall River does business, and the end result is always the same. Piles and piles of BS, and at the end of the day, the taxpayers take it on the chin again. The rates go up to $5 and change, and they got a million excuses, and then they look at the numbers, and they all wring their hands, and they get this, I don't agree with this, but I vote for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is what we've said, and the reason that we haven't moved on to other things to investigate is that all we do is add to the pile in this city. So,
I'll tell you, it just gets worse and worse. And then, of course, yesterday, Terry Sullivan presents $77 increase a year per household. Now, remember, that's per household. That's one family. So when you've got a triple-decker, he doesn't tell you that that's $77 each unit, okay? No, it's $77 a household. So it's like the $10 a month fee. It's, it's per household. So, and why do we need that? Because
he
can't
keep... By the way, $241 a year.
Yeah. Exactly.
And $482 for a six-family.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. Why? Because he can't keep up with the EPA regulations. Quit, and please don't resign, because if I have an option, I'm going to go to the retirement board and I'm going to scream that you shouldn't get it for your incompetence, because this is amazing. And the city council just goes, well, we have to do it. In my review of Sylvia v. Fall River, and, Attorney Macy, maybe you should go review that decision. I'm sure you're very familiar with it. The rainwater fee could actually be classified as a tax. Now, if there's 10 citizens out there who want to put it together and go to court, and you get that declared a tax, get the sanitation fee declared a tax, the city's in violation of Mass General Law 59, Section 21C, because they've been exceeding Prop 2.5 without approval. So guess what? Maybe it's time that they pay. And maybe we should go and take it up to the state and say, why are you not doing your job? Instead of sending out letters like we have received from the DLS saying, you don't like it? Sue them. We don't have to sue them. You got to do your job. But it's interesting because yesterday, I've spoken about this several times before, I brought something to several labor unions. Not one, several. And it's, again, under Division 1. And for people who aren't familiar with Division 1 is, Division 1 is your city charter. It's the actual charter. It's what gives the city the right to operate. Well, under Division 1, Section 37, you have the right to have an initiative petition. A petition conforming to the requirements hereinafter provided and requesting the City Council to pass a measure, accept an order granting under Section 70 or 71 of Chapter 164, Chapter 166, or requesting the school committee to pass a measure therein set forth or designated, shall be termed an initiative petition and shall be acted upon as hereinafter provided. In this and the 8 following sections, otherwise known as measure, shall mean an ordinance, resolution, order, or vote passed by a city council, or a resolution, order, or vote passed by the school committee, as the case may be. So, voters, you have the right, under your city charter, to undo everything that the city council, the mayor, and the school committee have done. The validity of initiative petitions, and this is governed, by the way, under Mass General Law 43, Section 37. Again with the 37. Isn't it amazing how everything refers back to our state constitution? Section 5, Section 37. Signatures to initiative petitions need not be on all one paper, so you can have multiple papers, obviously. The papers constituted petition shall be filed in the office of the city clerk with the endorsement thereon of the names and addresses of 3 persons designated as filing the same, but all the papers need to be filled out at the same time. The petition shall be considered filed whenever the designated person notifying the board in writing that the filing is complete. Before receiving such notice, the registrar of voters may, notice it says may, but shall not be required to certify signatures on the papers already filed. With each signature to the petition shall be stated the place of residence of the signer, giving the street and number, if any. Within 5 days after filing of said petition, the registrar of voters shall ascertain by what number of registered voters the petition is signed, and what percentage that number is of the total number of registered voters, and shall thereto attach their certificate. The city clerk shall forthwith transmit the certificate with the petition to the city council or the school committee, according to the petitioner's address, and to the same shall send a copy to the said certificate to one or more of the persons designated. When such certificate has been so transmitted, said petition shall be deemed to be valid unless written objections are made thereto by a registered voter of the city within 48 hours after such certification, by filing such objections with the city council or the school committee, and a copy thereof with the registrar of voters or the board commissioner having similar duties. Section 7 of Chapter 55B shall apply to such objections, and the Board of Registration of Voters shall transmit a copy of the decision to the city council or the school committee.
Okay, hang on one second, CJ. Rather than just read them, let's have them read. Everybody go to the charter and read this, because we don't need.
I don't need to read the whole thing, but what I do want to get across to people, though, is that you only need 15% of the whole number of registered voters. With that, the city council or school committee shall, within 20 days after the date of the certificate of registrars to the effect, pass said measure without alteration, subject to the referendum vote provided in the chapter, or the city clerk shall call a special election to be held on a Tuesday fixed by said clerk not less than 30 nor more than 45 days after the date of notification, and shall submit the proposed measure without alteration to a vote of the registered voters of the city at that election, provided, however, that if any city election is otherwise to occur within 90 days after the date of qualification, the city clerk may, at his discretion, omit calling the special election and submit the proposed measure to the voters at such approaching election. Now, here's the real kicker on it. Even if you don't get 15, it goes to the next municipal ballot with 8 to 14% of the voters. So if you get an initiative petition signed and presented to the city clerk, and the Board of Elections decides to say, oh no, you've only got 14.2%, it goes to the next municipal election next year.
Yeah, well, you hear that giant whining in the background?
Yeah.
The whining is the politicians who all believe that when they're elected, they become the government. That they forget that we are the government. They forget that we have a constitutional right to run this government, that they are our representatives. And when they complain about things like recall provisions and initiative petition provisions, they're basically saying that they don't belong in government because they don't understand who they are. You know, we don't elect state government. We elect state representatives, our representatives, to represent us. Then they'll say, well, you know, you're going to comment on everything we do, and you're going to take issue with everything that you don't like. Well, guess what? Welcome to democracy.
Ooh, you swore again.
Welcome to a real democracy. Welcome to something that is truly a republic, a representative form of government, but it's a democracy. The majority shall rule. And guess what, politicians on every level? If the majority of people don't like what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing it, because that's the way the government is. And if you're in the minority, tough. I've been in a minority with things I voted for, but you have to live with it, because those are the rules of the game. You know, we can't change the rules of a baseball game when our team's playing and say that the team with the least amount of runs wins the game. This country is a democracy, and a majority rules. And we see it in the city council, and they're always looking for an excuse. They hate it when the people rise up and tell them, we don't want you to do this, and if you do it, we're going to change it. And you know, we see it all the way up to the national level now. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party are thumbing their nose at the people. they fundamentally told everybody, I don't care who you nominate. We've already picked them. And when there was a chance that Hillary was not going to take the nomination, they basically told every Democratic voter, tough. Hillary's it. We don't care if you vote in Bernie Sanders. We don't care what happens. Hillary's the nominee. To me, that calls for an overthrow of the parties. Maybe we should get 2 new parties rather than the Republicans and the Democrats. Maybe the grand old party has been the grand old party too long. Maybe like they were formed when they got rid of the Whigs. It's time for us to look and let's make this nation an independent nation. We have most of these people are independent voters today. They vote their conscience, they vote their beliefs. And that way we get a representative outcome. When the people are allowed to speak, the majority rules. And when your own party, if you're a Democrat or a Republican, which I am not, I have always been an independent or unenrolled or whatever the euphemism you want to use. You know, your party doesn't tell you what to do. Your conscience tells you what to do. So that's why we're here, to tell you to research, study, listen, and question. Question everything they say until they prove they can come up with something that's accurate. We've seen way too much of people going in front of the council making allegations about these numbers, and then these numbers prove to be crap. And now there's a big question about whether it's cheaper or not for DCM.
Well, you know,
the whole process is absolute crap.
You know, and I have made numerous Mass General Law 6610 requests of the city. I received another response finally yesterday in regards to the DCM whole proposal. I asked for specifics. I asked for a breakdown of all money saved, all salaries eliminated, costs, copies of the contracts, everything. You know what I got? I got a printout of the salaries out of Munis for the DCM people that will be laid off, and I got a copy of the mayor's PowerPoint presentation. That seems to be my request. Again, non-responsive. And the attorney that's doing this is a former judge. A former judge. And if it's not him, then whoever's signing his name to these letters needs to turn around and realize, do your job.
You're right.
My requests are very specific. I don't make them, you know, broad, so broad that you can't answer them. Do I got to get down to, you know, what did you have for breakfast this morning at 7:05 a.m.? Because, I mean, that's exactly what it's getting down to. So I have to send everything up to the Secretary of State's office. And then they come down and they say, bad, provide the information now. They're looking to drag it out so nobody gets the truth until it's too late.
Well,
and the law department is just as guilty. Well, and maybe the citizens should file a lawsuit against the law department for malpractice.
Well, we don't really have a law department. We have a department that justifies the existence. They're getting paid, just like lawyers will take either side of an issue. But let's see what they say. You know, they said at yesterday's meeting they don't have to keep 3 times the amount that's in the employee fund, and they're right. Statutorily, they have to keep it in a trust fund. But they also said, we also know that they use that money for other things.
That's right.
The reason. And I want to know, and I'm going to send a letter.
By the way, did you ever get your audit?
No, I'm going to send a letter on that, but I'm also going to ask if, I'm also going to send a complaint out which asks very simply, does the city of Fall River have the right to take money that was budgeted for the health care and use it for non-health care issues without making a transfer through its legislative body? And I want to hear the answer to that one. And if the answer to that is no, we got a big lawsuit coming.
Oh, I'm sure. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you Friday. If you got any questions or concerns, our tip number is at the end of the show. Have a great day. Stay angry.
That's right. Really angry.